There's an unfortunate trend I see with speculation where people create an environment where it's only okay to talk about the things that they have deemed likely. They have been bested by the discomfort of getting excited for an idea that may not happen. They don't want to get their hopes up, which I do understand to an extent, but that doesn't change the fact that that is so boring. Why limit daydreams to reality? Doesn't that defeat the purpose of dreaming? And for what? To get bragging rights that you guessed a character in Smash Bros? What are you gonna do with that? Put it on a resume? Not to mention that sticking with impossible dreams is a proven method of making them happen. I fully believe that any character will eventually get onto the Smash roster, if enough consistent support is rallied behind them. Except for this one. I don't think it matters how hard I can sell people on this. Nintendo is not putting the devil into Smash Bros.
Don't give me hope.
But seriously, Diablo is my poster child dream character. An idea I love thinking about so much that it counteracts the pain of knowing that it will never happen. You may scoff, you may deem it impossible, and I agree wholeheartedly. But apart from Rayman, there's no character I want in this game more than this one. So likelihood be damned. Let's talk about him anyway. Given my usual audience, I think a bit of a history lesson is in order. You've all heard of Activision Blizzard, right? They are currently chilling with the likes of EA and Konami as they compete for the Worst Gaming Company Ever award. But it wasn't always this way. Back in their heyday, Blizzard Entertainment was perfect. Working for them used to be my dream job. They possessed the highest standard of quality in the business, centered around three core genre-defining franchises. Warcraft, one of the original pillars of real-time strategy, which would go on to directly and indirectly spawn two of the most iconic and impactful genres we have today. StarCraft, a game I consider to be the perfect real-time strategy game, one of the pioneers of competitive esports, the unofficial national sport of South Korea, and on a personal note, a strong contender for my favorite game of all time, and Diablo. A series that even to this day remains the face of the hack-and-slash dungeon crawler. When you talk about iconic series in video games, all three of these titans deserve to be mentioned. And Overwatch is pretty cool too, I guess, but that game and current Blizzard are almost separate entities at this point. But disregarding that, these franchises dwarf some of the ones already in Smash. Warcraft dwarfs Smash itself. And I would love the chance to celebrate that history. Celebrate classic Blizzard here in Smash. It may be dead today, but we can at least honor its memory. And while I adore the idea of grabbing Thrall or Kerrigan or the Lich King, I think the coolest character they can offer is Diablo. So what can Diablo bring to the table? Why am I so excited for this idea in particular? Well, for starters, he comes from a genre that has never been touched in Smash before. In this case, the hack-and-slash dungeon crawler. A boss of that genre, no less. If we translate those boss mechanics into Smash, we've got a recipe for greatness already. And on top of that, it's Diablo! Al Diablos, the Lord of Terror, Destroyer of Souls. You are not going to find a better villain power fantasy than this one. Think of everything that's fun about the current villains. Impact, power, disrespect, intimidation. All while being fun to fight because their hitboxes are massive. Diablo could embody every single one of those aspects, some better than anyone currently on the roster. Now, I know there's an obvious hesitancy to highlight what is blatantly Satan so strongly in a Nintendo game, which is why this will ultimately never happen. But for the sake of pretending, I'm confident we can translate Diablo over without causing public outrage, at least not to a point that it stops being fun. And just to clarify, we are using the Diablo 2 design here. Spidery, spiky Diablo is fine, but we're going with the classic, as the classic fits this build the best. So what's so special about hack-and-slash dungeon crawler bosses? Well, the boss fights in Diablo play differently than most others on this roster. You have a top-down perspective while fighting them, which allows for these massive area of effect abilities that would be broken in most other genres. This is allowed due to how easily you can see them coming. You are mobile enough to avoid them. You may take a bit of chip damage here and there, but you will survive as long as you keep away from the boss and don't stand in the fire. But this isn't a Diablo player character here. We're talking about Diablo himself, if you could play as him. So to do Diablo justice, we need him to be able to create these boss fights for his enemies, to essentially herd his opponents, create danger zones that his foes cannot enter without taking damage, cornering them to one area of the stage, then going for the kill once they are trapped. To help embody this, and to allow us to push for crazier limits later, I want Diablo to have a passive mechanic, something that I'm going to call Hellfire. This is the Lord of Hell himself. His immense power radiates off of him, causing anybody nearby to take constant chip damage. Not too much, just a few decimal points per second, but it slowly racks up the more time you spend at melee range with him, forcing players to dart in and out to fight him safely, as well as serving as a much needed equalizer for how heavy he'd be combined with his massive hitbox. This way he's still combo food, the best combo food, but now there's some inherent risk to continuing the combo for too long. A constant question if the damage you're dealing to him is worth the damage that he's dealing to you. With that design safety net in place, we can afford for the rest of Diablo's moveset to act a little differently than the rest, giving him powerful attacks with a bit of super armor, but having absurdly long windups making them easily avoided. And they are supposed to be avoided, as many of these attacks are not meant to hit you, they are meant to herd you. Let's get into some examples. This is Diablo's casting animation from the first Diablo game. Looks pretty good for an up smash, right? So we'll go with that. He gathers power and shoots a gout of flame out of his back spikes. It's a very large blast that hits for a good chunk of damage, but the animation is so long that you'd have to be caught slipping to get hit by it, which is why that's not its primary purpose. The danger here isn't over after the initial blast. This, along with Diablo's other smash attacks, creates an area of effect zone that will cause people to burn. So yes, it's easy to dodge the explosion, but the lingering flames are still going to hurt you until you get out of them. Same thing here with his forward smash, preferably with a less wooden animation. Lights his hands on fire, then claps them together for a hefty explosion, leaving a burning cloud in its wake. And his down smash, as he stomps to create a shockwave that ignites the ground around him, singeing anyone foolish enough to stand nearby. Which may sound terrifying, but it's markedly less so when you realize that these flames don't cause hit stun. They're comparable to Piranha Plant's side special, or Fox's blaster. They deal damage, but you're not stunned by it, so you can go through the flames if you have no other options. The idea here is to force your foes into a corner, where they have to choose between taking this damage or becoming trapped. And getting trapped is the last thing you want to happen in a Diablo game. To personify this, Diablo's grab is one of the most dangerous in the entire game. This guy burns you just by being near you. You're already taking damage before he starts pummeling, which he does by simply vomiting fire on whoever is in his grasp. These grabs are Diablo's best option to reliably kill. Most of these throws will be the end of you. I'd prefer these animations to be especially brutal to show this. Imagine something similar to Terry's Power Geyser, but with someone caught in Diablo's hand as he slams them into the ground. The rest of Diablo's normals fall in line with what is, well, normal for Smash. He's still on the slow side, but you're far more likely to hit people with his basic claw and tail swipes than you are his smash attacks. He could have a goring dash attack with his horns, a melee-styled Bowser back air with those ridiculous spikes on his back. You get the idea. I will say that he should fare rather poorly in the air. Diablo is a very grounded game, and Diablo himself isn't very limber, so he should struggle in aerial battles. But as for specifics, I'm not too picky. Most ideas would work. The specials are what's needed to complete the picture, and we'll start with the down special. Currently, Diablo has some very powerful tools to control the area directly around him, but he doesn't have much to answer to a projectile-heavy camper. This will fix that. Bone Prison, an ability he uses in Diablo 3. And it works the same way as it does in Diablo 3, creating an area of effect zone where your opponents currently are. If they don't move away, they will be stuck in place, leaving them vulnerable to the brutal punishes that Diablo possesses. Now, the animation is long enough that it will almost always be the player's fault for getting hit by this, but again, that's not its primary purpose. It's an effective tool to lock down a section of the stage. His side special fulfills a similar function, being the Wall of Fire spell from Diablo 2. Use the side special to send out a guidable projectile, kind of like a more cumbersome Nikita. This projectile does not deal damage on contact. It instead trails fire behind it for a short time, leaving a dangerous wall of flames in its wake. You basically draw your own firewall, creating a burning obstacle that best suits your current situation. Now remember, Diablo's flames do not flinch you. You will not be locked in place if you get caught by them. Just don't stand in the fire. Though at this point, it's probably getting difficult to do so. You may just have to take the percentage to avoid getting cornered. And if someone does get cornered, well, that's when you use his neutral special, his signature ability, called, and I kid you not, the Red Lightning Hose. Later games call it the Lightning Inferno or Lightning Breath, but come on, we all know what the best name here is. This creates a massive beam of hellish energy, dealing insane piranha plant poison levels of damage. Overpowered if you can land the full blast on somebody, but that is rather difficult to do. A very long windup, you cannot cancel the animation, and yet again, no flinching. As soon as you start breathing, your opponents know to get out of the way to avoid taking too much damage. Or just run up and smash your face in. Taking 50% doesn't matter if they can take your last stock in the process. This is primarily meant for punishing mistakes and for complete stage denial, to capitalize on your traps and force your opponents to choose the lesser of two evils. Now how about his up special? I mentioned before that I want Diablo to be weak in the air, and I think we can fully embrace that here. You know how Banjo has limited uses of Wonder Wing? I want something similar for Diablo's recovery. This move has two forms, depending on if you press or hold the button down. If you simply press it, Diablo does a quick short-range teleport. And when I say short-range, I mean like Wolf's up special. It is not very good. But when you hold the button down, this ability is essentially the Dragoon item. Diablo plane shifts away and the player is granted a targeting reticle. When activated, or after a short period of time, Diablo will appear wherever you were targeting, blasting through a Hellgate, leaving flames everywhere to start another phase of combat. This would obviously be the most powerful ability in the entire game bar none, except that you can only use it twice. A common tradition of boss fights is to have multiple phases, generally 3, that you have to get through before the boss is defeated. We are going to have some fun and emulate that here. First phase starts at the beginning of each stock. Your Hellgate allows you to recover from the point of no return twice, creating 2 more phases, and after that, you're done. If you can't get back to the stage, your fight is over. That was your 3rd phase, and everyone knows that spells the end for you. So that's the specials handled. What do we make the final smash? Well, Diablo's domain in Hell is Terror. He's the Lord of Terror. So picture this. Taking a cue from Diablo 3, Diablo absorbs the souls of the other great evils to become the prime evil. He then begins emanating massive shockwaves of power, but these shockwaves don't apply damage, not much at least. They apply a status effect, Terror. When terrified, you lose control of your character, as they panic and do everything in their power to get as far away from Diablo as possible, even if that means running straight into the blast zone. It's not quite on the level of the other world-ending flashy final smashes, but you can't deny the idea isn't fitting. You literally scare your opponents to death. I can't think of a better ultimate ability for the Lord of Terror. And that, my loyal subjects, is my take on Diablo in Smash Bros. I'm well aware that it's an extremely bizarre concept that would require a lot of number tuning to work properly. Its balance would largely depend on how long these area of effect abilities last and how much damage they do. But this is one that I wholeheartedly believe would not just work, it would be one of the best potential additions to this series. A slow character that will rarely hit you with his strongest attacks, but he doesn't have to. His very presence burns his foes. His attacks ignite the air, scorching the stage itself, slowly but surely closing off all escape routes, forcing his opponents to either face the fire and suffer, or risk stepping close enough to be crushed beneath his massive fists. And that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. Have you got any pipe dream characters that would be a ton of fun to play in Smash? Let me know in the comments. Getting people to share those ideas was a big part of why I made this video. You may have noticed that the audio on my voice sounds a little different. I got a better microphone recently, and I'm having a few growing pains getting it to work properly. A lot of hissing from F and TH sounds. Tried to fix it as best I could, but I'm still figuring it out. Should boost the quality of these videos overall when I do. I want to give a special shout out to my patrons, especially the irresponsible ones that continue to support me through a pandemic. I don't know if that's the best investment in trying times, but I appreciate you all the more because of that. Thank you. It does help a lot. For our next video topic, I think I'm gonna relax a bit. Tackle something fun and stress-free that's... anyway, something that won't... I said something stress-free. Okay, fine. The fanbase terrifies me, but let's do it. See you then.